When I first saw the numbers on China's naval growth, it honestly stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah.
We're talking about a navy that's now numerically the largest in the world. Over 370 battle force ships, and it's projected to grow to 435 by 2030.
hmm
Meanwhile, the U.S. Navy, well, it's expected to be around 290. That's a really stark contrast. What was your initial reaction to that kind of raw data?
It really is a striking shift, isn't it? And what's fascinating, I think, is just how quickly this has all happened.
Right.
This isn't just some gradual evolution. It's a deliberate, strategic transformation that's been underway for, well, decades now, really reshaping global maritime power.
Absolutely. So today, our deep dive is all about that China's rapid naval modernization. We're going to explore its, significant implications for global maritime power,
Ah,
especially when you look at it through the lens of, say, U.S. Navy capabilities and, of course, international alliances. Our insights today, they come primarily from a detailed Congressional Research Service report. We've also got analysis from the Atlantic Council on ICUs and a comprehensive overview of the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue.
and our mission really is to dig into these reports and pull out the absolute key takeaways for you.
Yeah.
We want you to walk away not just knowing what's going on with these powerful navies, but crucially, why it's such a big deal
Exactly.
and how different countries are kind of playing their hand in this evolving strategic game.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's start with what the sources are calling China's naval ascent. I mean, a force that's been completely transformed over the last, 3 decades?
Yeah, roughly that. The People's Liberation Army Navy, the plan, they've been pushing this massive modernization effort since the early to mid-1990s.
And the scale of that growth it's genuinely remarkable. Like you said, the plan is now the largest navy in the world, over 370 battle force platforms.
And remember, that number doesn't even count about 60 of those HOBEI class patrol combatants.
Yeah.
They're smaller, sure, but they still pack anti-ship cruise missiles.
Right, good point. And it's not just today's numbers either. The projections are even more eye-opening.
hmm
The plan is expected to hit 395 ships by 2025 and an astounding 435 by 2030.
It's huge growth.
Yeah, and when you stack that against the U.S. Navy, which was at 292 battle force ships early 2024, projected maybe around 290 by the end of FY 2030, it really highlights a significant difference, a disparity, in shipbuilding pace and maybe industrial capacity too.
So what does this all mean for China's strategic outlook? I mean, this isn't just about collecting ships, right?
No.
It's driven by very clear, pretty aggressive strategic goals. First, they're aiming for control, maybe even domination, over China's near seas region.
So the Yellow Sea, East China Sea, South China Sea.
Exactly. And they also want to effectively defend China's commercial sea lines of communication SLOCs, especially those really crucial links back to the Persian Gulf.
And it seems to go beyond just defense, doesn't it? The sources point to a clear ambition to, well, displace U.S. influence in the Western Pacific
Oh, definitely.
and assert China's status as a leading regional power and ultimately maybe a major world power. This feeds right into their concept of A2AD, right? Anti-access area denial.
Precisely. The plan aims to operate as an A2AD force. It's designed specifically to deter U.S. intervention in any conflict in China's near seas region.
Like over Taiwan, for instance.
That's the classic scenario people discuss, yes.
Yeah.
The fundamental goal is to make it too costly, too difficult, maybe just too risky for an adversary like the U.S. to operate effectively within a certain area, essentially pushing them further away from China's shores.
Okay, so if the goal is making it too costly or difficult, what does that fundamentally change for how, traditional naval powers might approach a regional conflict? Does it force a total rethink?
It absolutely does. It forces a shift away from, say, traditional close-in power projection towards more distributed operations.
Spreading things out.
Exactly. And it emphasizes long-range capabilities.
Right.
It forces adversaries to operate at greater distances, which inherently increases their risk and, frankly, their logistical burden.
Makes sense for their near seas goals. But I'm curious, the sources also talk about other elements, right? Beyond the main battle fleet. Tell us about China's Coast Guard and this maritime militia. It sounds like a subtle form of power.
You're spot on. China's Coast Guard is actually the largest maritime law enforcement fleet in the world. Huge.
Wow.
Over 150 regional and ocean-going patrol vessels. And some of those were actually transferred directly from the plan from the Navy.
Interesting.
And then there's the maritime militia. This is basically a vast fleet of, on the surface, civilian fishing vessels. but they operate under state direction.
Right.
These are China's gray zone forces. They're primarily used to assert China's maritime claims, pushing boundaries in disputed waters, while the actual Navy kind of hangs back as backup.
So they can achieve objectives without it escalating to, like, direct military conflict?
Exactly. It's a very clever way to exert influence below the threshold of war.
That's fascinating, a sort of invisible pressure. Now, despite this really impressive growth, it's also important, I think, to acknowledge the limitations China's Navy still faces. It's not an unstoppable force just yet.
That's a critical point.
Yeah.
Our sources highlight several areas where the plan is still developing. There are challenges in executing complex joint operations, working with other branches of their military.
Okay.
Deficiencies in anti-submarine warfare, ASW, limitations in long-range targeting accuracy, and also at-sea resupply, especially far from home waters.
And bases.
Limited overseas bases, too, which you need for a truly global Navy. And, of course, they had to train a massive number of new personnel to crew all these new ships.
That's a huge undertaking in itself.
It is. But, and this is crucial, China is actively and very aggressively working to overcome every single one of these limitations. They're investing heavily in training, in infrastructure. They're not standing still.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Let's dive into some of the specific hardware, the tech that's driving this modernization. What stands out most from the reports about their anti-ship missiles?
Well, China has undeniably fielded what people often call carrier killers. These are land-based anti-ship ballistic missiles, ASBMs.
Right, the DF-21D, DF-26.
Exactly. Systems like the DF-21D range over 1,500 kilometers, and the DF-26, that multi-role intermediate range one. These are considered, potential game changers because of their unique ability to hit moving ships at sea from long range. That poses a really new kind of challenge to naval operations.
So these are the ones that grab all the headlines? But it's not just the ASBMs, is it? There's more to it.
That's right. While the carrier killers get a lot of press, it's really crucial not to overlook China's huge arsenal of anti-ship cruise missiles, ASCMs.
Okay.
They might not have the maybe dramatic arc of a ballistic missile, but their sheer numbers and their long ranges present a different but equally significant challenge, potentially saturating defenses.
Right, overwhelming the defenses. Okay, let's shift undersea. The submarine domain, notoriously secretive. What are we seeing there with China's subforce?
China's been steadily modernizing its submarine force, too. They're moving away from older, kind of antiquated models to relatively modern Chinese and Russian designs. The Department of Defense estimates they currently operate 6 nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines, SSBNs, 6 nuclear-powered attack submarines, SSNs, and 48 diesel-powered or air-independent power attack submarines, the SSs.
And that force is projected to grow quite a bit.
Significantly, yeah. To 65 units by 2025 and maybe 80 by 2035. That's a big jump.
And their new Jin class, the Type 094 SSBNs, they carry the JL-3 SLBM, right? Submarine-launched ballistic missile, longer range.
Yes, longer range than the previous versions, which significantly extends their strategic reach, their deterrent capability.
Okay, but what about aircraft carriers? Usually seen as the ultimate symbol of naval power. Are they catching up there too?
They certainly are making strides. China currently operates the Liaoning, that was commissioned back in 2012, and the Shandong, which was their first indigenously built carrier, entered service in 2019.
Right, the Shandong was a big step.
It was. But the real potential game changer is the Fujin, the Type 003, launched in 2022.
Ah, yes, the Fujian.
It's particularly notable. Huge displacement, over 79,000 tons estimated. And crucially, it's equipped with electromagnetic catapults.
Like the U.S. Ford class.
Exactly. Which significantly improves the range and payload capacity of the aircraft it can launch compared to the older ski jump designs on Liaoning and Shandong.
That is a big leap forward for their carrier capabilities. So while carriers project power globally, maybe their impact in a near-seas fight, like Taiwan, might be more symbolic than essential. What about the workhorses, the surface combatants? Same rapid expansion there.
Absolutely. I mean, beyond the carriers, the sheer speed and scale of their surface combatant expansion, like the Type 055 and 052D, it's truly remarkable.
The Type 055, that's the big one, right? Cruiser or large destroyer.
Yeah, over 12,000 tons. The first was commissioned January 2020, and they had the 8th by March 2023. And more are under construction. It's almost hard to grasp that rate of production.
It really is. Like, their shipyards are just running nonstop.
Feels like it sometimes. Then you've got the Type 052D destroyer, Still very capable, around 7,500 tons, equipped with advanced radars, vertical launch missile systems, pretty similar in concept to what's on U.S. Navy ships.
And there's an upgraded version too, the 052DL.
Right, the DL variant includes an extended helicopter flight deck, enhancing its versatility. And we can't forget the smaller ships, the Type 054A frigates, about 4,000 tons, and the Type 056 corvettes. There are lots of those.
More numerous, right?
Exactly. Some are ASW-capable anti-submarine warfare. These smaller but numerous vessels contribute significantly to the overall fleet size and, distributed capabilities.
And for amphibious operations, thinking about potential cross-strait scenarios again.
Crucial area. China operates the Yuzhou, or Type 071, amphibious ships. They have 8 of those now in service. And they are also rapidly growing their fleet of big speak air race. Type 075 amphibious assault ships think small aircraft carriers for helicopters and landing craft.
How many of those?
3 commissioned, and a 4th was launched by December 2023. So that fleet is growing fast, too.
And interestingly, I read that China is even exploring using civilian ferries and commercial ships to boost transport capacity for invasions.
Yeah, it's a fascinating concept they're testing. Basically, leveraging civilian assets for military ends. A creative, maybe slightly concerning approach to logistics for something like a Taiwan invasion.
Definitely creative.
And finally, on their reach, China's Navy isn't just sticking close to home anymore.
No, we're seeing them further out.
Exactly. Increasing numbers of operations away from home waters, the Indian Ocean, waters around Europe even. This is supported by their military base in Djibouti, opened in 2017. And there were recent developments at Cambodia's Ream Naval Base, too, where Chinese Navy ships docked late last year. China is clearly seeking a global network, refueling and resupply locations to support this expanding footprint and project power much further afield.
Okay, given all of that, it's clear the world isn't just watching. Let's shift focus now to the global response. How are nations balancing, innovating, reacting to China's growing naval power?
Right.
For example, the U.S. Navy has significantly increased its focus on the Indo-Pacific. Shifting forces there, what's the strategic thinking?
It's a direct strategic pivot, really.
Yeah.
The U.S. is developing new military tech, acquiring new ships, aircraft, unmanned vehicles, weapons, all specifically designed to counter China's capabilities.
And a big shift in fleet architecture.
A really significant shift, yeah. In their fleet architecture and operational concepts, the U.S. Navy is moving towards a much more distributed fleet architecture.
Meaning?
Meaning substantially greater use of unmanned vehicles. We're talking large USVs, medium USVs, even extra-large underwater unmanned vehicles, XLU-UVs.
That sounds like a fundamental change in how they plan to operate. Why is that distribution, that reliance on unmanned, so critical now?
It's all about increasing resilience
and,
crucially, complicating an adversary's targeting problem.
making it harder to hit them.
Exactly. This supports new operational concepts like Distributed Maritime Operations, DMO, and Expeditionary Advanced Base Operations, EABO. The aim is to make it incredibly difficult for an adversary like China to effectively target U.S. naval assets. Spread them out, make them harder to find, harder to hit, and reduce the impact if you do lose a platform.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Pretty much, yeah. Makes it harder to disrupt your overall operations.
Now, for those listeners who follow defense procurement, they'll know the U.S. is heavily investing in big programs like the next-gen Virginia-class subs, Ford-class carriers. But beyond those sort of headline platforms, what else are they focusing on, specifically to counter China's capabilities?
Right. Beyond the major platforms, the U.S. is pouring resources into specific counters. New anti-ship weapons, for example, like the long-range anti-ship missile, LRAM.
LRSM, yeah.
Advanced hypersonic weapons, like the Conventional Prompt Strike or CPS weapon, that's slated for the Zumwalt destroyers and Virginia subs. They're also upgrading torpedoes like the Mk-48 and Mk-54. It's a really comprehensive push for maintaining that qualitative edge.
So a truly multi-pronged approach then, okay? Given the threat of those carrier killer ASBMs we talked about earlier, what's the U.S. strategy there? Is it just about building better missile defenses, or is it more complex?
U.S. military officials are quite clear that they don't see China's ASBMs as, insurmountable silver bullets. The strategy is a mix.
Okay.
A combination of active measures actually shooting down the incoming missiles and passive measures.
Yeah.
Things like masking ship locations, making them harder to find, or using decoys to confuse the missile's reentry vehicles.
Trying to break the kill chain.
Yeah, exactly. That's the key concept.
Yeah.
The kill chain is that sequence of steps an adversary needs. Find the ship, fix its location, track it, target it, engage it, assess the damage. If you can break any link in that chain, the missile becomes ineffective.
And electronic warfare plays a big role.
A huge role. Systems like the ANSLQ-59 Transportable Electronic Warfare Modules, TWM, and the Nemesis program, which is designed to project false electronic signatures like a phantom fleet, are absolutely key to this disruption effort.
Fascinating stuff. Okay, beyond individual capabilities, partnerships and alliances are a huge part of the global response. The Quad is a prime example. Australia, India, Japan, the US.
That's right. Initially proposed back in 2007 by Japan's Shinzo Abe.
But it fizzled out for a bit.
It did, interestingly. It ceased in 2008. Australia pulled back. India was hesitant about antagonizing China, but it was powerfully revived at the 2017 ASEAN summits by the leaders of all four nations.
And while they don't officially call it the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue,
No, it's formally just the Quad, but it's widely seen, let's be honest, as a direct strategic response to increased Chinese power and influence.
and China's reaction.
The Chinese government has formally protested, yeah, they've called it an Asian NATO. India, for its part, firmly denies that characterization.
And the Quad has even expanded its scope, right? Beyond the core four.
Yes, they've held what they call Quad Plus meetings, bringing in nations like New Zealand, South Korea, Vietnam, even Brazil and Israel.
Wow.
Initially, the framing was around discussing COVID-19 responses, but it's pretty clear these meetings are seen as expanding the group's strategic importance and, frankly, addressing China's growing influence.
And the language they use.
Recent meetings consistently affirm a shared vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific and upholding a rules-based maritime order. This also ties into that deliberate effort by Quad members to redefine the region.
From Asia-Pacific to Indo-Pacific.
Exactly. Aiming to deepen those trans-regional ties and, well, deal more effectively with China's rise. And that term, Indo-Pacific, it's gained significant traction globally. Many European nations, Canada, they're all using it now, leading to increased naval presence and dialogues in the region.
Another really significant partnership is AUKUS, Australia, UK, US, now in its fourth year, primarily focused on helping Australia get nuclear-powered submarines.
That's Pillar 1, the subs. And as Pillar 2 is supposed to advance joint development of other advanced capabilities, AI, quantum computing, cyber, hypersonics.
But there are hurdles.
Big hurdles, yeah. Current U.S. technology sharing rules, particularly ITAR, International Traffic in Arms regulations, and EAR Export Administration regulations, remain significant barriers to the kind of deep collaboration envisioned for Pillar 2, bureaucracy getting in the way.
So to bridge that gap, there's this new initiative proposed called SPARC, Indo-Pacific Strategic Partnership for Accelerated Research and Knowledge in Defense. What's the idea behind SPARC?
SPARC is directly inspired by some NATO innovation efforts. It aims to actually make AUKUS Pillar 2 happen, with dedicated capital and, crucially, procurement pathways.
So less talk, more action.
That seems to be the goal. It would establish networks of accelerators, test sites, host prize challenges for innovators, create a joint interoperability center of excellence, basically build the infrastructure for rapid coalition-based tech development.
It sounds like SPARC is really an acknowledgement that maybe the traditional slow pace of military innovation isn't cutting it anymore.
I think that's fair. It's about out-innovating potential adversaries, but also maybe accelerating existing processes just to keep pace or even catch up.
And it has different tracks.
Yeah, the proposal outlines 3 strategic tracks. Rapid deployment for stuff that's pretty much ready. Innovation for the truly game-changing tech like AI and quantum and production. Figuring out how to scale up these new technologies effectively across the partners.
Okay, finally, we need to touch on this concept of the Davidson window and the related divest to invest debate.
Right, the near-term risk.
Yeah, some observers are deeply concerned about a potential Chinese move on Taiwan. Maybe between 2021 and 2027, that window named after Admiral Davidson, or more broadly, just this decade, 2020 to 2030, as a decade of concern.
And critically, decisions we make now about buying new ships, well, they'll have very limited impact on that near-term window. Those ships won't be ready in time.
So the focus has to be elsewhere for the immediate future.
It's exactly. Options to bolster capabilities now focus mainly on keeping existing ships in service longer, increasing their readiness, strategically shifting forces already available to the Pacific, and, crucially, rapidly upgrading the systems on existing platforms.
And this is all tied into that whole divest to invest strategy, isn't it? Where the Department of Defense proposes getting rid of certain older platforms.
Like some of the littoral combat ships, for example.
Right, to free up funds for higher future priorities. What's the argument for doing that?
Well, the proponents argue that in this rapidly evolving threat landscape, You have to shed older, maybe less relevant capabilities to fund the truly cutting-edge tech and platforms you need for future conflicts.
Makes sense on paper.
They believe holding on to some legacy systems just drains resources money, personnel that could be better spent on things like unmanned systems, AI, advanced missiles, things they see as more critical for competing with a peer adversary like China.
The critics, the skeptics.
They worry this approach reduces your capabilities right now, in the near term, potentially within that dangerous Davidson window for uncertain gains later. It's a classic debate, really.
Yeah, it's a really complex balancing act, isn't it? Between immediate defense needs and that long-term imperative for innovation, and clearly a very active debate right now.
Absolutely.
And maybe that's where we should leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought. We've discussed the, sheer numerical superiority China is building, the specific technological advancements they're prioritizing, and also the multifaceted adaptive response from the U.S. and its allies, new fleet designs, innovation hubs like Spark. What stands out to you thinking about all this is that constant tension, isn't it, between quantity and quality in military power.
It really is the core tension.
How do you see global powers balancing the immediate needs, today's defense, with that long-term imperative of technological superiority and ultimately strategic deterrence?
Yep.
This deep dive certainly highlights that the future of maritime power, well, it's not just about who has the most ships.
Not anymore. It's about who can innovate fastest, and maybe just as importantly, who can cooperate most effectively.
A lot to think about there.